Today in the bike world, we have news about an electric Triumph, the Triumph TE-1. This is a motorcycle that we've been seeing a concept of for a long time, and the bike has now completed something called Phase 3, which we'll get into right now.
Yeah, I made a video on this a couple months ago out of my bedroom, actually. So check that video out. I went into kind of what the project is, what Triumph is trying to accomplish here, and who all the key players in this project are, because it's not just Triumph working on this bike. But in that last video, we saw the powertrain, the motor, the battery kind of finalized. We saw what that looked like, minus some specs. And now in this video, we have everything around that powertrain. So we're able to look at this as more of a complete motorcycle. It's still a prototype, but we have a lot more to look at here.
Yeah, so last time we got some really cool close-up views of the chassis, the battery setup, the motor. And now that they've completed what they call Phase 3, they have a finalized version of all those components. So the chassis, suspension, brakes, that's all put together. And then Phase 4, which is going to finish up in summer of 2022, is when they're going to have the finalized styling, bodywork, paint schemes, and that's really when the motorcycle is going to be done. But for now, we actually get to see structurally what is this motorcycle going to look like. And then also this summer, they're going to do some road and track testing. So I'm sure they'll make some tweaks as to how the bike rides between now and then. But we know essentially what components are going to be on this bike.
Yeah, and let me just say, if you're going to roll out an electric bike, this is the way to do it. I mean, forget Sondors and all those other companies who out of nowhere just show you a finished bike. Yesterday they didn't have anything, and today they have a complete bike ready to go on sale, and then months or years later it's nowhere to be found. You can't buy it. They have all kinds of inventory and manufacturing issues. Versus a real brand like this, Triumph, they're bringing you through the whole process, showing you what they have to do to get to a final product, and taking you along the whole process with them. So I applaud Triumph for doing that. No other bike manufacturer is kind of showing you the behind the scenes on how they're trying to move from gas-powered to electric bikes. All the brands are making that switch, but Triumph is really being transparent with it, and I gotta say, I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to be keyed into the process and understand more about how this bike is being engineered, especially because this is a very new type of motorcycle in the industry relative to, obviously, gas-powered bikes. And because this is a relatively new area of engineering and design, there are a lot of companies, like Alex mentioned, that have been brought in to make this design possible. So unsurprisingly, we have companies like Öhlins providing the suspension. We have Brembo brakes. We've got Pirelli Supercorsa tires. So those are all things that we know are on this motorcycle. But then you have companies like Williams Advanced Engineering that designed the battery, and also Integral Powertrains Ltd. Designed the electric motor. And the electric motor is a pretty cool design.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of got this chrome look to it right now, and Triumph is saying they're not using like external cables or anything, and it's a really small electric motor. It weighs about 22 pounds or 10 kilograms, and it's capable of over 180 horsepower. So a really small motor unit that can put out a lot of power, looks really good, and doesn't have a ton of random accessories stringing out from it, connecting everything. It's really well integrated and really compact.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean that this motorcycle is going to be making 180 horsepower, but that's what that electric motor is capable of. And overall, talking about the design on this bike, a really clean setup. It doesn't look dramatically different from a gas-powered bike. It doesn't look super weird. If there wasn't a lack of an exhaust pipe, you could almost be fooled into thinking this was just a normal motorcycle. It looks a lot like the Speed Triple.
Yeah, it looks really similar to the Speed Triple. Right off the bat, you can see that in the headlight design. This has that same kind of bug eye headlight that people either love or hate, that hangs really far off the front of the bike. I don't mind the look of it, but it definitely falls within that family of styling that they're using on their other bikes. The other thing I noticed is the frame on the Speed Triple. You have this tubular frame that kind of splits into two as it goes down the bike. And although this isn't a tube-shaped frame like the Speed Triple, it does carry that same design element of kind of splitting into two different sections as you go alongside the bike. But yeah, as Kase said, There's a ton of electric motorcycles out there that have just wild designs. Some of them look really cool. Some of them look really not practical at all. Even Harley's Livewire, which is a bike that's coming from a major manufacturer, doesn't look anything like the rest of the bikes within their own lineup. It has this, it's cool looking, but it has a futuristic look, matte paint schemes. It's way different from anything else they're selling. And with this, Triumph is going for something that really fits in the rest of the lineup. If you've been a Triumph customer for 10, 15 years and you like their bikes and you want to make the switch to electric, chances are you're going to like this bike too.
Yeah, at a glance, immediately you can tell that this is a Triumph. It looks like a Triumph. And one thing that I like a lot is the shape of the chassis and bodywork moving around the battery and the electric motor in the center of the frame. They've done a good job of making it a little bit more interesting and dynamic to look at than a lot of electric motorcycles on the market, which will just have a giant box in the middle of the frame, which is where your battery is. And it's obvious that there's just a big box of batteries in the middle and it doesn't look very sharp. This bike does a good job of having bodywork move around everything, all of those hardware components in the center of the bike, and making it look a little bit more interesting. There's also a sort of raw appearance, raw finish on the frame. That is something that could change in the coming months because, again, the completion of Phase 4 is also going to complete the bodywork, paint schemes, and everything. So what you see in terms of the finish on the frame and the color of the bike, that's likely to change.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting them doing this raw style frame. I have yet to see a motorcycle with this finish in person, but I know it's becoming really popular in the electric space. The Sondor's Metacycle has a really similar finish. The Tesla Cybertruck has a similar finish. There's a lot of vehicles out there that are doing these raw finishes, and for some reason it's now taking off with these electric vehicles. So I think it's a pretty cool look, and I hope that that kind of continues to production. Also, there's a big, what looks to be a TFT screen. It's not lit up in any of these images, so can't really comment on the size or what it looks like, but this being an electric bike, I think it's safe to assume there's going to be some high-tech specifications on it. There's probably going to be advanced tech packages with ABS, traction control, and you're going to need a big colorful screen to control all that. So hoping we see some good tech on this bike.
Yeah, and a few other things that we can tell from the pictures. This motorcycle is also belt drive. It's not chain drive. And it's also a one-seater, this prototype. And that's probably a good thing because from the electric motorcycles that we've been on, they take off really hard, and I'm not sure that a passenger would enjoy at least riding with either one of us on an electric bike.
Yeah, so they'd probably be grabbing on for dear life, and they'd be flying off the back before they could get their arms around you.
A one-seater might be for the best.
Yeah, probably. I think is the Livewire a two-passenger? I think it is. I'm pretty sure the Livewire is a two-passenger bike. So we'll just see what happens with this Triumph. But anyway, this is the Triumph TE-1 concept, now entering Phase 4, where they're actually going to be road and track testing it. That should complete around this summer, and when it does, we'll have more information on you and hopefully get some seat time on one of these.
Yeah, and this will be exciting because this is still a space where there's not tons and tons of motorcycles from these bigger manufacturers. Obviously, Harley-Davidson has a Livewire, and there's companies like Zero popping up that are making electric bikes, but that haven't been making motorcycles before then. So it's cool to see more of the major manufacturers jumping on this, making other options so that there's more competition out there. Hopefully that drives pricing down. And these bikes are pretty cool to ride. Both Alex and I have been on the Livewire, we've been on Zeros, and they set off. They're fun to ride.
Bikes.
I miss the sound. I miss having a transmission, clutch, gears to click through. That's always a lot of fun. But the torque is hard to argue with.
Yeah, there's something to be said about pure, insane acceleration.
Exactly.
It's kind of unbeatable. Anyway, thanks for watching. Head on over to tfl-studios.com, and we'll catch you in the next video.